Hi folks, this is Jake. Hope you're okay today. I just want to share with you this book that I've read, Historicity and the Gospels by E.H.E.W. Turner. I've enjoyed the book, but very difficult reading, even though it was an enjoyable read. A disappointing read, even though I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because I enjoy this kind of stuff. This kind of stuff I really enjoy reading. But I was disappointed. He was critiquing Bultmann's ideas and trying to show that there can be a historical core to the Gospels. But I felt that his criteria that scholars were using at this time, it's 1960s, the book, on I think it's the criteria of dissimilarity. Anything that's not Jewish within the context is seen not to be authentic to Christianity. And now this was written in the 60s, and it was round about the 60s that scholars began to see that actually this is just not a bad this is a bad idea. That actually there were scholars in the 1920s, Jewish scholars, that began to write lives of Jesus based on a Jewish context. And it was only till the 60s that these Jewish scholars were rediscovered, and scholars began to see that the criteria of dissimilarity, where they discounted anything that was Jewish in the text of the New Testament, they began to realize that that just was not on, that actually that's anti-Semitic, because Jesus was a Jew and the New Testament is obviously in a Jewish context. So to say that anything Jewish within the text is not authentic to Christianity is just crazy. But this scholar is kind of saying that that kind of idea is solid and great and gives us good information. And yet it's only a few years later, into the 60s, that these ideas that this scholar is advocating is debunked. It comes crashing down with a big thud. So it just shows you that you've got to be careful when scholars say this is the way to do history, this is the way to get factual information, and are assured this is the assured way. You got to do your own thinking and think, well, is this the right way? Just because everybody else is saying it, and everybody was saying it. The whole academic world generally in the early 60s and before the 60s was saying that anything Jewish is just not on. It's not part of Christianity. But you've got to do your own thinking. People like Adolf Schlatter, early in the 19th century, late in the 19th century, was an evangelical scholar, was already looking at the Jewish context. He was before his time. So he was 80 years ahead of modern scholarship, and yet he was rejected, and yet he was vindicated, because in the 60s they rediscovered the Jewish context. So I found this book disappointing in that I thought he would have been more discerning. Second area disappointed is he talks about Josephus, Tacitus, and says these are not really important texts because they're not really saying much, and I just think that's really, really bad, because these are important. Even though there's not a lot of information, these are really important texts because they confirm the general outline of the New Testament when you put it all together. When you put younger Pliny's letter, when you put Josephus, when you put all these bits of information together, it actually confirms the general outline of the New Testament. So it's really important. And it's interesting how fashions change. As he's writing this, it's mainly critiquing Bultmann. Bultmann now is not fashionable. And so you have these scholarly fashions, and what people don't realize when you're listening to documentaries about Christianity and critiquing Christianity, all you're getting is scholarship that's already gone out of fashion, because these are popular scholars that are going on the TV. By the time you hear it in the media, it's already in the scholarly world out of fashion. So I found it helpful though, because I'm interested in historical Jesus studies, and I continue to work on that. And yeah, it was an interesting read anyway. Alright, take care.